We are now recording.
We're recording on our little audio recorder too. So, Jimmy, if you want to call it order, and then I'll take it over.
Okay. Good afternoon. I'd like to welcome everybody. Call this meeting of the Kingsport MTPO Executive Board to order. Welcome everybody from wherever you are sitting on behalf of Chairman Phillips, who will be joining us hopefully momentarily. But I'll pass it on to Leslie for her articulate announcement.
Okay, so the meeting is being recorded, and an audio or video recording will be posted to our website within a couple of days. In light of the COVID-19 pandemic and pursuant to Executive Order 65 in Tennessee and House Bills 29 and 30 in Virginia, determination has been made by the board that meeting electronically and prohibiting the physical presence of the public at the meeting is necessary to protect public health, safety, and welfare for all concerned. I will do a roll call vote. So if our board members, make sure you're unmuted when you answer me. So let's see, James Phillips is not here yet, but he plans to join as soon as he gets out of his previous meeting. Vice Chairman Jimmy Adkins.
Present.
Blake Ayler.
Present.
Chase Milner.
Present.
Rhonda Sawyer.
Present.
Mayor Pat Stillwell.
Present.
And Amber Torbett.
Present.
Okay. If y'all weren't aware, Mount Carmel has a new mayor, Pat Stillwell. She is joining us today. She just took office. I believe she was sworn in like a week or two ago, so she's brand new.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Welcome, Ms. Pat Mayor Stillwell. Welcome from across the hill.
And she is joining us with Mike Housewright today. So general information for those who have not attended our meeting or have not attended a Zoom webinar. What you're seeing and hearing are the panelists. So our board members, MPO staff, TDOT officials, Federal Highway, Sean is joining us. Everyone else is joining as an attendee. So you can see and hear, but you cannot interact with us unless you should have an option to raise your hand. When we get to the public comment section, you do have two opportunities. The first one is for agenda items only. The public comment section at the end of the meeting is for any transportation related items. You also have a Q&A box or the chat box where you can enter information or questions during the meeting, and we will address those, at the appropriate time or at the end, just whenever we need to. So attendees, just know that, raise your hand or do the Q&A or chat box. When we get to certain sections of the agenda, we will be promoting different attendees to panelists so they can share their screen or talk or interact or whatever they need to do. So I believe, Jimmy, let me share my agenda. So if you want to proceed. Oh,
yes. The next agenda item is the public comment on agenda items. Open the floor for any discussion from the public on any agenda items and agenda items only. Just as Leslie had said, raise your hand, let her know, send the messages. We've got some great staff in Kingsport to handle that. Give a couple moments for that. Being as though I haven't heard any yet, public comment on agenda items period is now closed by proclamation. Move on to agenda item number 3, approval of the minutes from the August 6, 2020 meeting. I hope everyone has had a chance to review those minutes. Are there any questions, comments, concerns?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion by Rhonda. Do I have a second?
Case Miller can second that.
And duly seconded by Chase. Question on the floor is approval of the minutes recorded from the August 6th, 2020 meeting. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye, or do we need to do a roll call vote?
Have to do a roll call.
All righty, by roll call vote. Leslie?
Okay, Vice Chair Jimmy Adkins,
Aye.
Blake Ayler,
Aye.
Chase Milner,
Aye.
Rhonda Sawyer,
Aye.
Mayor Stillwell,
Aye.
and Amber Torbett.
Aye.
Okay,
That motion carries and unanimously approved as presented. Moving right along, agenda item number 4, the amendment to the bylaws. Leslie, the floor is yours.
okay. So as the current bylaws state, you have to introduce changes at one meeting and vote on them at the next. Actually, at our August meeting, which would have been the voting meeting, this was tabled. So this is actually the third meeting we've discussed the amendment to the bylaws. The biggest change, as you guys know, is adding language to allow virtual or electronic telephonic meetings if needed. I did make the change you had suggested, Jimmy, to the technical coordinating committee to put the Lena Wisco executive director instead of the regional planner, since you said there's not always a regional planner. So other than that major change about allowing the virtual and electronic meetings, there's just some minor changes in titles and stuff like that. Looked back, Tennessee does have a bi-state MPO that has updated their bylaws, which is Chattanooga, and they're bi-state with Georgia. And then also, as we discussed on the last one, is the National Capital Region in Virginia, which is a bi-state MPO, has also updated their bylaws to reflect the meetings. So is there any additional discussion, questions, anything about the bylaws, or do we want to, are you ready to vote on it? Was there any more review?
I guess that I would definitely open the floor up for discussion, because I know that we tabled it the last time, if I remember correctly, which is probably not safe. That there was some research going back, looking at it, making sure all the technicalities and the language is done right. I briefly tried to scan and compare the language that was in the draft presented in August and the draft presented in the current package. Is item 5 unchanged on both the
Is
executive?
that the virtual part?
Yes, it is.
Yes.
For both executive committee and technical committee?
Yes. And
Okay.
as I mentioned before, I did not specify in here that there had to be states of emergency or executive orders or anything like that. For one being a bi-state MPO, like the issue we got into this last time was Tennessee allowing virtual meetings and Virginia not, and we're a Tennessee MPO. So there was just some confusion, and had it been in our bylaws, it probably would have been a little easier for us to go ahead and meet electronically. But our public participation plan talks about the Open Meetings Act. So our bylaws, current bylaws or these updated bylaws, neither one refer to the Open Meetings Act or anything like that. But I mean, it's a given, we have to follow that. So I just didn't want to hem us in should there be a situation just up here in Northeast Tennessee, Southwest Virginia that allows it. You know, something major happens here and they would allow us to have virtual meetings, but we have in our bylaws, oh, there has to be a state of emergency or a national emergency. So that's one reason I did not get into the weeds too deep on allowing virtual meetings. I did take language from Tennessee's executive order and Virginia's House bills and combined them for this section of the bylaws.
Hey, Leslie, quick question from Blake. Just, I know last time we deferred this item for some additional research could be done on it. And I know FHWA got in on the conversation as well. And I didn't see anything in the agenda packet about any of that additional research. And one of the primary comments was, and I said this last time, I support amending this, and I wanted to hold it up last time because the question that's come to light is Tennessee allows virtual public meetings in their law. But there's 2 caveats to this. One is the law in Tennessee states you have to have a physical quorum at the location. So there has been questions for years in the state of Tennessee as to whether or not the members who attend virtually, can they vote? Are they voting members? And I've not ever seen that answered. And I know that's always been, that is the reason why Bristol has held it up. The second part to that is, if in the future, outside of executive orders, the MTPO decides to hold a virtual meeting and the state laws stay the same, can you vote legally on Virginia items, knowing that Virginia law says you can't have a virtual meeting?
Well, my understanding is we don't look at it as Tennessee or Virginia business, it's MPO business. And especially with us being a Tennessee MPO and TDOT being our lead agency, if Tennessee's allowing virtual meetings, then yes, we could vote on Virginia items that fall in Virginia. With us being a Tennessee MPO and Tennessee allowing virtual meetings. And I'll just point out also that Chattanooga's bylaws don't mean, like, as far as virtual meetings and stuff, they don't mention Georgia at all. They say if it's allowed by Tennessee, then they can have them. So, I think we've kind of went above and beyond researching this, and our federal highway reached out to your federal highway, and then Federal Highway Virginia reached out to you guys. So
And they did. We did have a conversation. I had a conversation with both federal highways, if I remember correctly, on a joint call. We never followed back up. We had an initial call, and then I've never heard anything else about it till today. So, I mean, if your MPO council has reviewed this and can say beyond 100% certainty that an item for Virginia can be voted on based off of the MPO bylaws, even though they don't align with Virginia state law, then I'm fine. But I remember the whole reason we got here was that's not what we originally thought, because at some point Tennessee wasn't going to extend their meetings virtually, but Virginia had, and there was the comment of, can we have it or can we not? So if council has read this and says, yes, beyond a shadow of a doubt in the future, no matter what Virginia law says, you can vote on the meetings, because that's what I've got to look out for, is legal votes on Virginia items. Then I'm fine with it.
Yeah. And this doesn't specify, this doesn't get that far in the weeds. This is basically just saying, hey, yes, you can have virtual meetings. I mean, if it's allowed. So
what did you say Federal Highway said about it?
Well, they reached out to Federal Highway Virginia, and then Federal Highway Virginia talked to Bristol. So I wasn't involved in those conversations, but they were a little surprised, and some TDOT people were a little surprised at the pushback we're getting on just trying to update this. So.
Yeah, Leslie, this is Sean Santaya from Federal Highway Administration, Tennessee Division. Yeah, we did have conversations with our counterparts over there in Virginia, and our understanding was that they were okay with the language as presented here, and felt that it was compliant, at least with the federal law. I mean, our oversight responsibilities are to the federal requirements, and I know Tennessee has issued additional guidance on holding virtual meetings that I'll probably look to TDOT to speak a little bit more clearly on. But regarding the subject of Tennessee items or Virginia items, as Leslie mentioned earlier, from the federal perspective, we're looking at all of the items that are being taken before this board as MPO items, not necessarily Tennessee or Virginia items. And if there are certain project prioritization actions that take place for projects that are in Virginia, whether or not VDOT chooses to accept those, I guess is kind of a state level decision. But from our perspective, the items are not Tennessee items or Virginia items, rather they're regional MPO items.
And I will say again that there is a bi-state MPO in Virginia, the National Capital Region, that has updated their bylaws as well.
What's the difference in the language of ours presented here and theirs?
The Chattanooga and the National Capital Region both do mention state of emergency, national emergency, or Open Meetings Act. They may not, one of them may not mention all of them, but that's the difference, is they mention those. Now, what we would do is, when the bylaws are updated, then we would update the public participation plan to reflect the change in the bylaws. So our public participation plan already mentions the Open Meetings Act, and it's actually refers to, I believe, both in Tennessee and Virginia. So that is mentioned in our public participation plan.
I guess to play devil's advocate, to somewhat echo Blake's concerns is I think we can look at it from the perspective of, okay, yeah, the meetings would be good to go. Voting should be okay. But the way I look at it is, if we have any actionable items that take a vote that affect Virginia, and in retrospect, somebody comes and says, no, is there language that would go in our motions that would affect Virginia items to include, make that legal gray area of contingent upon ... I'm not a lawyer, but I don't know what that would say, but to pass this along, which is, very supportive of, I just, again, want to make sure, just like Blake was, we do it right. We don't want to go back and change anything, and nobody
So
wants to hand
be
smack.
covered in the PPP?
Is what, Rhonda?
Would that not be covered in the PPP? I mean, the bylaws are like a general guidance. Doesn't, like you said, it doesn't get way down in the weeds between state law and, the Tennessee state law and the Virginia state law. It's just kind of a guidance on how we're holding our meetings. And then should anything like that not be addressed in the PPP?
Yeah, the PPP does talk about the Open Meetings Act, in both states. So it is, obviously we're going to go by that, but it's just we ran into this difficulty early on, when Tennessee allowed them and then Virginia didn't. And it wasn't in our bylaws. That was the first question we were asked, was what do your bylaws say? So
at what point in time would we look at modifying the PPP? And I do see the note in there, it does not require executive board action.
yeah, just modifying the PPP. If the bylaws change, then I would modify the PPP. I can modify the PPP at any time, but obviously I wouldn't do it for this reason unless these bylaws change, because I would be modifying it to include language about virtual, electronic, telephonic meetings. But then the Open Meetings Act for Tennessee and Virginia are both mentioned in the PPP. That would stay. So
who signs the approval for the PPP change?
Well, just administrative modification, it just goes, the MPO just makes the change. There's no like approval. We make the change and send it to TDOT, and no, no, because it's just a modification. It's not an amendment. So if it was an amendment, like a major change, then yes, it would have to go through board approval and then to TDOT and Federal Highway, but just a modification doesn't. Same as with our TIP or, just a modification's done internally.
Okay.
So with all that said, and the Federal Highway doesn't have a problem with it, and if the executive orders are going to be addressed in the PPP, and these are generalized guidelines on how to hold a meeting, then I'll make a motion to approve.
All right, do have a motion on the floor to approve the amendment to the bylaw. I'm assuming as presented, Rhonda?
Yes.
Awesome. Do I hear a second?
This is Amber. I'll second.
Have a motion by Rhonda, duly seconded by Amber. Is there any further discussion on the matter? All right, we'll go to a roll call vote. Leslie?
Okay, Vice Chair Jimmy Adkins,
Abstain.
Blake Ayler,
Abstain.
Chase Milner,
Aye.
Rhonda Sawyer,
Aye.
Mayor Stillwell,
Aye.
Amber Torbett.
Aye.
Okay.
Awesome. Motion carries. And
I have a question.
shoot.
So I assume that the MPOs will stay up on this and all the changes and any other guidance from our states and Federal Highway. We can always amend the bylaws if there's anything additional we need to put in there or so forth. So I'm glad we have something in place, but we can always amend them again if we find out that we need to wordsmith it again. So I
Yeah.
feel comfortable with this.
Yeah, I agree, Amber. And then also, I did make it easier to amend our bylaws. Like you don't have to do it at 2 meetings. It's just, as you'll see on the screen here, that they may be amended by affirmative vote of a quorum at any executive board meeting. So that was one change from the last one as well. So it'll be a little easier to change them should we need to in the future.
Okay, thank you.
Leslie, I got a quick question. How many votes, affirming votes, was that 3?
4.
4.
That's 4.
It passed.
Done.
All right, good job, guys. Moving right along, agenda item number 5, annual list of priority projects. Emperor Albright.
All right. Of course, this is an item that's brought to the board and really staff every year, every fall, is to evaluate and approve the priorities of projects. And this is a Tennessee issue, not Virginia. The next item is both. This is a Tennessee item. Again, evaluate and rank major projects in the MPO area within Tennessee. And again, it's submitted to us initially from TDOT, and then we make the adjustments. We make set the priorities and rank those. And you can see the yellow column is the rankings for this year. Last year was in the column beside it, so we adjusted it just a little bit. But these are major projects typically managed by TDOT and typically funded by TDOT as opposed to local MPO funds. And once these are established, once we send this back to Nashville, they will determine which ones go to the 3-year plan. A 3-year plan in Tennessee is real important because these are the projects that move forward. These are projects that get attention. There's projects that actually have funding or funding's committed. It might be listed somewhere, but if they're not in a 3-year plan, they're going to sit still for a while. So these are to be considered for inclusion in the 3-year plan for Tennessee. There are 2 lists, actually. The first list is again, the ones that sent to us from Nashville. The second list is some of the projects that we would like to have considered moved up in rankings and eventually on the 3-year list. And I'll go through these real quickly. Again, they're by phase too, not necessarily by project. You might have 2 or 3 listings for the same projects, just different phases. So real fast, first one's Memorial Boulevard, phase 1. It's under a right-of-way access acquisition process, Sullivan Gardens Parkway. And this is the section in the middle there near the ridge. Near Fall Branch, the third is the section down in Horse Creek Valley there near Sullivan Gardens. And these are all construction phases. Then there's the ITS expansion along Interstate 81, between I-26 and Virginia line, Rock Springs Road from Cox Hollow to Interstate 26 right away. And then the second phase of Memorial Boulevard, which is pretty futuristic, from Cooks Valley to Interstate 81 right away. And then Fort Henry Drive or State Route 36 now on the list, and that's from Interstate 81 to State Route 75. The wish list project, I guess you call it that, at the bottom there is extension of State Routes 357 from Interstate 81 to I-26. That's been around a while. The establishment of ITS along I-26, not to be confused with the one I just mentioned, was 81. This is another project Johnson City MPO is also supported, so we're sort of in tandem with them, supporting ITS on Interstate 26. And for those that don't know, ITS is basically camera systems, weather stations, count equipment, various intelligent transportation system features that, such as a variable message board that go along the interstate there. Improvements to the I-81-26 interchange. I don't need to say much about that, except it's needed. 6 Landing Stone Drive from John B. Dennis there, State Route 93 to New Beesonville Road as to accommodate the retail traffic in there. And the truck climbing lane from the Meadowview area down at 93 to the Welcome Center. So that's the list that we will send back to Nashville. And if you want to make changes, now's the time to do that if you want to, or within the next few days, if you feel the need to reconsider it and look at it. But we've got to send these in pretty soon. And there's some really good mapping in the agenda package. Mike did a great job on mapping, by the way. It looks really good of the 2 different lists that that I just presented. So any questions?
Bill, I'm actually grateful that you threw out there about the mapping. I was going to say the same thing. So whoever did the mapping,
Really good. I think Mike Thompson did that.
That was Blake's idea. Blake asked if we had maps, so Mike created them real quick.
good job, teamwork.
I will say I sent this out to the technical coordinating committee for review, and I did get one comment back from them. It was a project to consider for the future list, and that is westbound State Route 1 from Lynn Garden, which is State Route 36, to Interstate 26. Add the third lane. It already exists on the eastbound side. So if you're coming up Stone Drive, or if you get on Stone Drive from coming out of Virginia, coming down Lynn Garden Drive, State Route 36, and you get on Stone Drive, there's a short lane there and it ends. And then, you come up to Fairview Avenue and then you get to the I-26 ramps. So they're saying to add the third lane. It's already on the eastbound side. But I did look, and that is not listed in our long range plan. So I don't know that we want to add it to this list at this point. We're working on our long range plan. Our long range plan consultants are on this meeting with us today. So that would probably be something we need to get in the long range plan first.
Yep, I agree. It's a little early.
James Phillips had mentioned the interchange ramps, and the same thing from Lynn Garden Drive, State Route 36 to State Route 1 had mentioned improvements to the interchange ramps. So it is in our long range plan already.
We can add these later, I guess. We'll check on that.
All right, great presentation. Any discussion?
Chase just has a question about the ranking swap of 2 and 3 from last year. That's and about the Sullivan Gardens Parkway. Didn't know if there's any additional comments you all could offer as to why it's now ranked, swapped. This came up, I think, in last night's I-81 public hearing. And
the section they were talking about on there, and the section that's closest to I-81 is actually under construction right now. So those that are basically downtown Fall Branch, that's already under construction. The next section, we swapped those two because
I think one's just ahead of another development, right?
Yeah, pin number 112834.02 is in the current 3-year plan for construction for fiscal year 22. And the other section is still in the right-of-way phase. So that's why we flip-flop those, because that one's a little closer to getting, it's already in the 3-year plan for construction, whereas the other one is still in right-of-way.
Great, thank you.
Any other further discussions? All right, I will entertain a motion regarding the resolution and the project rankings.
Chase would be willing to make that motion to approve the resolution and project rankings as presented today.
Thank you, Chase. I do have a motion. Do I have a second?
This is Blake. I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Blake. Have a motion and a second to approve the resolution and the project rankings as presented. All those like Leslie, roll call vote. I ain't used to it.
Vice Chair Jimmy Adkins.
Aye.
Blake Ayler.
Aye.
Chase Milner.
Aye.
Rhonda Sawyer.
Aye.
Mayor Stillwell.
Aye.
And Amber Torbett.
Aye.
Thank you so very much. Moving on to item number 6, annual federal funds obligation reports for Tennessee and Virginia. Bill.
This is something we have to publish every year. This is required by Federal Highway, Federal Transit, annual federal funds obligations report, which simply means that money that's been authorized or obligated by these agencies to spend on various projects. And we have a fairly complex spreadsheet that you got in your agenda packet, so we won't go over the details. But if you have a question about a particular project or particular amount of money, just let us know. We'll get that offline. I will say that you can't move forward with any phase of any project that's federal funds without this authorization. This is a step or obligation step that you have to get through before you can move forward on a project. So it's very important to get funds obligated by the federal agencies. And of course, there's actually a table for transit as well, Federal Transit Administration. This tables came from CATS and also NetTrans on money that's been obligated for their operations and their capital purchases. As far as the, and there's also Virginia DOT spreadsheets. Most of these are zeros, don't have any money really listed, but there is one or two that I believe has what's considered groupings projects, which includes ITS, safety projects, and operational projects. So the groupings are listed for those particular categories of activities or different phases of projects. So we've got those, and we've got the Tennessee list. And I will say the ones we're interested in mostly in the Tennessee list is those that the MPO has authorized, which is, or MPO has initiated, and those are STBG funds. So if you're looking for Kingsport's projects that we authorized here locally, it's in the type column, which says type of funding for STBG funds.
That's the LSTBG.
Yeah, local. So I'm sorry, local STBG funds. It's the L. So that's the project that we're more directly influencing. So any questions about these? This is something that does not require action. So you don't have to vote on it. You can, if you want to, you can affirm it. But again, it's federal highway money, federal transit money that's been obligated for local projects.
And the on the transit sheet here, you'll see CARES Act. That is the act that's funding due to the pandemic. We didn't actually have to report it here unless it was programmed in the TIP, and only certain uses had to be programmed in our TIP. So this did not have to be programmed in the TIP. We did not have to report it here, but we thought it was good information to show, just to show basically, you know, transit's really been suffering through all this with, you know, not being able to provide service on some of the fixed routes, and then having to limit the number of people that can be on the buses. So this CARES Act has really bailed the transit industry out.
Ridership is way down most transit systems. And I recently saw where the commuter ridership is way down in the big cities, and it's because everybody's working from home. So that may continue for a while.
And we do not report any transit funds for the Virginia side because our only provider in our MPO area over there is considered a rural provider, and DRPT applies for 5311, the rural funds, on their behalf. So they are not reported in our MPO funding.
Thank you for clarifying that, Leslie. I was going to put you on the spot for it anyways.
Bill already asked.
Any other further questions, comments, concerns for Bill and Leslie?
And this will be posted on our website and available in our office
Yes.
by the end of the year. It has to be posted online and
90 days.
of the year.
Yeah, in the fiscal year. And that is the action, actually, is not necessarily vote, is to publish it, put it on public venues.
Okay. Hearing none, we'll move right along. Thank you, Bill. Item number 7, 2021 executive board meeting dates. We're already thinking that far ahead.
Yeah, it's not very far away. So we don't really vote on this. I just wanted to ask again, the past couple of years, you guys have said that you want to pre-schedule our meetings and follow Bristol's schedule. So Bristol's meetings are in the morning, ours are in the afternoon. If that's still the case, then we would meet February 4th, May 6th, August 5th, and November 4th. Bristol's meeting at 10 a.m. We'd meet at 1:30, probably maybe 2 o'clock like today. So do you still want to, because there's several members of this board that are also on Bristol. So do you all still want to coordinate with Bristol, or you have different dates in mind, or just schedule stuff as we need to, schedule meetings as, you know, action items come up, or what's your preference?
I love that system. It makes sense, especially when there's visitors. Previously, we're doing everything virtual. It's clean and seamless. I like the way it is.
I agree.
Yeah, I think it's helpful if they're for VDOT or TDOT people in town that they can hit both of them, one time and still get back pretty early if we have ours at 1:30.
Any questions, comments, concerns?
So I will type up a schedule and send it out to you all and post it online.
Awesome. Thanks,
So
Leslie.
is the time 1:30 or is that going to be flexible?
It's usually 1:30 when we're meeting in person. I mean, it kind of depends on what's on our agenda. Our agenda wasn't so long this time, so that's why I did 2 o'clock. But I think with Bristol meeting at 10, usually they're done 11:30, so it still gives you a couple hours to have lunch and get down here. If we meet at 1:30, if it's an in-person meeting. And then like our last meeting, went 2 hours. So I think it was better to have it at 1:30 instead of 2 o'clock. But I mean, it's a little flexible. We would just meet in the afternoon, 1:30 or 2 probably.
Okay.
Thank you. Moving right along, agenda item number 8, Kingsport Long Range Transportation Plan update. And our screen's already changed. It looks like we're going to have a great presentation by our ACOM representative. Is that Jim? All right. Don't have any volume if you're talking, Jim.
Yeah, no audio.
There we go. Sorry about that. Are you getting full screen of the presentation?
And we're seeing your next slide and notes.
You are? Okay.
Yeah.
1 second. All right. That should do it.
Yep.
Okay, great. So, good afternoon. Again, my name is Jim Meyer. I'll introduce myself along with colleague Soraya here in a minute. But just to provide a quick overview of what we wanted to cover today. There's been some mention about the 2045 Long Range Transportation Plan update. And so we are starting that process. We've been underway for about a month now, starting to work with staff on obtaining some materials and maps and all of that good stuff. So today, what we really wanted to do was spend about 30 to 40 minutes, maybe. I know you have a few other agenda items to cover here today, so we'll try to move through this fairly quickly. But we did want to provide an overview of the project, show you the schedule, key milestones, talk a little bit about public engagement that will be part of the process. And then spend most of today's discussion around LRTP issues and the goals. And so just briefly touch on the goals that were in or are in the 2040 plan. We did send out some questions to the board members. We got a couple of responses. And then we'll spend about maybe 15, 20 minutes with a live polling. So if you do have a cell phone handy, or if you can open another browser window in a few minutes, we'll give you the address, and we're going to ask a couple questions to just kind of go through that. But and then we'll just briefly wrap up with a quick summary of kind of the next steps on where we're heading. So again, my name is Jim Meyer. I have 24 years of experience doing multimodal planning. I've worked on 35 plus long range transportation plans for MPOs around the country. And I'm a Chicago employee with AECOM, but sit in St. Petersburg, Florida. So with this virtual world, it's not much of an issue anymore. So Soraya, maybe can you introduce yourself briefly, and then we'll move on to the next slide.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Soraya Motzinger, and I am an AECOM employee based out of the Wilmington, North Carolina office, which is over on the coast. And I have 14 years of professional transportation planning experience, 7 of which were working as an MPO employee for 2 different MPOs. So I've seen kind of both sides of the coin on the public and private sector. And from that, I have a half dozen MTPs under my belt, and really excited to dig into this plan. And it's already been fun. So look forward to continuing.
Sounds good. Thanks, Sarah. So a quick overview. I think a few of you may have been involved in the last process. If not, there's several things that go into an LRTP. First of all, the key element here is that it is multimodal. We're really kind of taking that 40,000 foot look at roadway issues, transit, active transportation. But we also look at environmental justice, environmental issues as well that go into the plan and are considered. Public stakeholder engagement is a critical part of this. So we do have a public engagement plan that we're just wrapping up a draft of right now. Obviously, virtual engagement is going to be a part of that. I'll highlight some of the key dates that will be coming up for opportunities for the public to participate. This process is guided by the FAST Act. Performance measures are an important element of this. So obviously you guys as a MPO have gone through and accepted targets or set targets. And so part of this update will be reporting on that. This is a continuation of what began in MAP 21 and continued in FAST Act. And so we'll be looking at those key measures. Part of the process in your current LRTP stresses or focus on economic development, and that was made clear throughout the proposal and everything that that should be a key focus of this plan as well. There are some technical elements. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about it, but one of the things that we are starting work on right now is an update to the travel demand model. And so as part of that model, we're working with the MPO staff to project 2030 and 2045 population employment projections. And that will be an input into the model to ultimately identify future traffic levels and areas of traffic congestion, and also test future transportation improvements. Last point I'll make is that this is a fiscally constrained LRTP. And so one of the things that we will do as we look at the various projects and consider projects over the next 25 years is we will compare those cost estimates of projects to what available transportation revenue and funding has typically been available. And so we need to make sure that our final plan, that the projects that we do identify are fiscally constrained within that range. Any questions on that? I know that's a quick overview on the LRTP, but if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to address them right now on that. All right. So if not, I wanted to share the schedule with you. I know the left side of the screen here is a little small. It's not real critical at this point in time. Wanted to just kind of give you an overview of the entire process. So we have our technical analysis, our steps over here, along with our major deliverables at the bottom. And so you can see we're really about a month into the project. We've been looking at the current plan. We're addressing goals and objectives. That's what we want to discuss a little bit with you today. And I've mentioned the socioeconomic demographics. We're working on that, and the existing conditions is underway. So here we are in November or early December. If we're looking at the schedule, the big milestone that we're looking at is in August, where we'd like to have a first draft of the plan done. And what this is going to allow us to do is have staff, the DOTs, federal highways start to take a look at this early on. We also would like to have a public open house around this time to get some initial feedback. And so we'll come back, take all of that into consideration, do a revision of the plan that we'll bring back, so about a year from now. And then again, address any concerns, come up with a what we would consider kind of a final draft that would be a draft that we would put out for public review really around February, March of 2022. Key date to keep in mind here is June 7th, 2022. That's the date that we have to have this plan adopted by. You know, and with the meeting schedule that you have for the MPO meetings, you know, we'd probably most likely be looking at a formal adoption of the plan maybe in May of 2022. So again, with those MTP meetings, we will plan on providing some updates. We'll, for example, in February, we'll come back with some findings from existing conditions analysis for you. But we'll plan on utilizing those MPO meetings throughout the process to update you on deliverables. There's a couple tech memos that we'll put together there early in the spring. But the big piece that we'll be looking at is really developing that draft LRTP by August of next year. So just kind of a quick summary that I hit on this already, so I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but some key dates in here in the presentation for you in terms of when the drafts are due, or when the drafts would be ready, and then the public review comment period. And then again, looking at that May 2022 adoption timeframe. One last item in terms of the schedule, I mentioned public engagement. So we are, obviously, given the current situation, we are developing a virtual room that is going to host documents. It will contain various material on the LRTP as we go through. But we do envision 3 open houses, the first one being sometime in February. And we're in the process of setting up this room now to include a survey, also a map that the public can drop comments on, and provide issues if there's a intersection issue, or if there's a you know, a bus related concern or active transportation, they can map that. August would be another open house to discuss the draft report, and then we would have a final open house sometime around February of 2022 as well. So we do envision ongoing surveys, additional information that would be presented along the way. We'd use social media and coordinate with the partner organizations to get the word out about those different meetings, surveys. EJ, or environmental justice, will be a key part of this, obviously, and stakeholder interviews, which will start to get underway in February of March. So I'll pause there. I threw a lot of information at you in terms of the schedule, but are there any questions at all in terms of kind of the activities or anything we have planned? I'll back up to this slide real quick. Okay. So moving right along. So I wanted to take just a couple minutes. I'm not going to read through what I have up on the screen here, but there are 3 goals that are currently in the 2040 plan. And part of what we're going to come up to in a few minutes is just a discussion around, are there any changes or anything that we might need to update as part of this process. So goal number 1 is focused around livability, and you see a number of the key elements mentioned in here: safety, active transportation, healthy communities. So all of the goals that you have are responding to the FAST Act requirements, the 10 requirements that we need to look at as part of the LRTP update. There are some things that we've talked internally with staff about, for example, the first bullet point there about improving safety related to fatalities, injuries. When this was completed last time around, we didn't have the full definition around the performance measures and targets. So there might be some clarification here around fatalities and serious injuries. Also looking at crashes as they're related to bicycle and pedestrians as well. So, again, transit is mentioned in goal number 1, active transportation capacity needs for the roadway system as well. Sustainability is the second goal. So a lot of this focuses in on economic, social, environmental. The first bullet point there, state of good repair. Again, this is a big piece of the long-range transportation plan. So a lot of the focus of an LRTP is obviously looking at what are new projects we might build or need in the future, but we also need to focus in on the operations and maintenance aspect of it and take care of the assets that we already have in place. And so when we go through that and we consider costs and everything, that will be part of our analysis to make sure that we're factoring that in into the study. Again, looking at travel time reliability. There's also talking about resiliency, air quality as part of goal number 2 as well. Third goal obviously is more focused in on economic competitiveness. So looking at ways to enhance ways that the transportation investments can support growth, redevelopment throughout the region. This gets into tying in with land use. There's mention of freight, tourism. All of this ties into goal number 3. So all 3 of these are up there. I'll pause for a minute to see if anybody has any thoughts, comments on the current goals, to see if there's anything that maybe as we start to look forward to the 2045 goals. And I should say that when we come back in February, we will have any proposed changes that we'll present. In that time, we'll also be reaching out to the public to see if there's any comments or anything that might impact or have us make edits to the goals that you see on the screen right now. But is there any questions, any thoughts around the goals that are up there on the screen right now? Okay, so we did ask prior to the meeting, we sent out 2 questions to the board members, and we got a couple of responses back. First of all, what is the biggest transportation issue or concern within the metropolitan planning area? So you can see the responses here. We had the 8126 interchange mentioned, the complexity, the need, cost, safety concerns. I think been a reference to that earlier as well. There was also a couple mention or a couple responses that mentioned public transportation. One with looking at connectivity between the Tri-Cities. Also a need to be sure that we're conducting surveys to look at what transit riders' transportation needs are. There was a comment about the Greenbelt being a great system, need to look at expanding that eastward. And then a reference to land use and zoning regulations. And in terms of the transportation element, a lot of that has to do with the connectivity of the network and some of the zoning restrictions related to sidewalks and really focusing in on building a healthy environment. So any additional thoughts or comments at this point in time, that any items that you don't see up there or that you think should be, if you didn't have a chance to comment before?
Jim, this is Bill.
Yeah. Hey, Bill.
Actually, I got a question for Sean. Sustainability, livability, all those things in the FAST Act, is that going to change in the next few months or anything? We stick with that?
Hey, Bill. Yeah, I don't, I can't speak specifically whether or not that's going to change in whatever the next iteration of the federal,
Yeah.
the Federal Funding Authorization Act is. I think we mentioned at the last MPO call that we're talking about issuing planning emphasis areas that are kind of a supplement to those
Yes.
planning factors. And so we've heard that that's going to be at least a couple of things that were mentioned. Equity is going to be part of that. Planning environmental linkages, which is a little bit of a sustainability type of potentially focus there. I wouldn't anticipate much of a change, Bill, to those planning factors. They've stayed pretty steady, is my understanding.
Okay.
I think you guys are probably right on with what you're talking about.
PEAs will stay in place.
The PEAs, well, I'll let you guys know when we get more information on those. Right now, it's just kind of what we're hearing from our headquarters folks. But yeah, the PEAs will likely be in place, hopefully within the next few months here, and we'll communicate that to you guys and talk about how to incorporate it into these sorts of planning efforts.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Anybody have any comments or any additions, I guess, to what you see on the screen? Otherwise, I will move along. So the second question we asked had to focus more on the current plan, kind of what do you like, what opportunities there might be to enhance the plan. And I think this was pretty consistent, that people do like it in terms of it's straightforward. There's a lot of good substance material in there, generally easy to find information. One of the things that we've talked about is maybe an opportunity to make some of the maps or provide a little more pop, make the maps a little bit easier to read with some of the labeling. And we've talked internally with the staff as well about when we do have those projects that are recommended as part of the fiscally constrained plan, maybe providing some pictures or additional information that would go along with each of those projects to just support the analysis that we have. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Soraya. She's going to go through the live polling exercise that we wanted to do. And so if you do have a cell phone or a browser that you can use, Soraya is going to share her screen and provide you instructions on how we access that.
And Soraya may be covering this, but I just want to point out, this is for everybody, not just the panelists. It's for all attendees.
I am, and if I'm good to go, I'll go ahead and get started. So we wanted to, first of all, bring some more fun into transportation planning, because we can't be doing transportation planning if we're not having fun. So we do suggest that you grab a cell phone. If you have one available, a smartphone, thanks for the likes. Or you could open up another browser on your computer or tablet to go to menti.com, and you're going to enter this code 4054287 and then hit submit. After you do that, you will start seeing some questions that are prompted on your phone. And when you get prompted with questions, go ahead and answer them. They should be pretty intuitive, but I'll try to walk you through it, and hit submit when you're done answering the questions to your satisfaction. And then this is a very important final step, and this is kind of why I suggest using a smartphone if you have it. Is you will want to look back on your computer screen to see everyone's results, because whether you're using your smartphone or your tablet or another browser, you're going to have to toggle between your screen and your particular answers to see everyone's answers through Menti. So we'll go ahead and get started with a hard-hitting question. If everyone could go ahead and enter, what's your favorite ice cream flavor? Oh man, there's some tough competition coming in here between, Vanilla is taking the lead. Great. I'll give everyone just a second. You can tell this is kind of just to play and have a little bit of fun before we get started. The real purpose of using Menti is also so we can guide and see discussion. So I do suggest, after you start seeing some of the results, I'll go ahead and ask some more questions. And if the board members would like to kind of participate with your particular thoughts when we go through these questions, that would be really helpful. And that's what we're looking for in particular. And hopefully everyone's had a chance to answer. It looks like we have 23 responses so far that want to. So I'm going to go ahead and move on to our first real question. So the first question we have is, how important are transportation investments to promoting the following objectives in the Kingsport MTPO area? And we have economic development, safety, state of good repair or maintenance, and quality of life on there. So you can see little slider bars, and you can go ahead and submit your results for each of those, and we'll see what comes in. And we are thinking that this information will help us kind of understand what the values are in the region to help us inform what is going to happen with any modifications to the goals as well. So, wow, it looks like safety is really important to the folks online right now who are participating. Second, well, it's neck and neck for state of good repair and economic development. And quality of life is also very important. If any of the board members would like to mention any thoughts that you have about these, we'd be happy to hear what you're thinking as well. And if not, that's okay too. We'll keep going.
Yeah, and Soraya, I might add too that I mentioned earlier, but we will give the public an opportunity to also kind of weigh in on these items and as well, and expand on it a little bit as we go through and look at the goals and objectives.
Absolutely. This is really an opportunity today for us to engage with each other, even in this virtual environment, and kind of see discussion. We know this isn't a statistically significant way to get this information. So thanks, Jim. All right, I'll move on to our next question if there's no discussion right now. Got some good results. It looks like economic development came in at second, maintenance third, and quality of life not far behind, with safety as number one. So that'll help with some of our next questions. So our next question, we have heard and we saw in the goals from the current MTP that economic development is really important to this region. So we would like you to, again, go to your Menti if you're on your cell phone or tablet or other browser and submit answers to this question. If you could rank the economic sectors that could most benefit from transportation improvements in your MTPO. Looks like we have one response so far, and this is a ranking question. You'll see once you make one choice, additional choices will pop up. So it'll take folks probably just a minute, and we'll give you a minute to answer. Great. Got a dozen responses. These are coming in great. And this looks very consistent with what we've heard and what we've seen in the current MTP as well. Ooh, we're seeing some movement in the rankings. In the past couple, we've gotten 23 or 24 responses, so I'll give it just another second to see if we have another response or two. It looks like manufacturing came in at number one, and then retail number two, office and services behind that, we got one more response, still consistent, medical, and then agriculture 5th. Oh, wow. And then retail has now climbed to number 1 as we continue to get more responses in. But everything looks pretty close between retail, manufacturing, office service, and medical, and then agricultural. So any comments here or any discussion we could hear?
Do you ever throw out the highs and lows?
This program doesn't do that. But if we were doing a statistically significant, like an actual survey, we definitely would look at those methods.
You could skew this a little bit, just somebody put a 0 or something.
Oh, yeah, you're absolutely right. Does that mean you disagree?
Have you thought of other economic sectors? I mean, like tourism sites and parks and things like that. Well, we have some state parks as well as city and county and trails and things like that, and other tourism type venues. A lot of sports. I didn't see that. I mean, that is an economic, or maybe it's just something that promotes economic. I guess it doesn't actually generate. I don't know.
No, that's a great response. I'm really glad you mentioned it. I noted it.
Okay.
We'll look at that.
And should point out too that as part of the FAST Act requirements, tourism is a important element. So yeah, we thought we'd try to keep this around 5, but I think part of this this whole process is to just generate discussion like that as well. So yeah, thank you for the comment.
Is there anything else we missed on that note that is really important, or any additional detail we want to add here? All right, I'll go ahead and move on to the next discussion, Menti. And this one's, it'll look the same as what you just did on your phone, but you can see it'll show a little bit different. So we wanted to ask a question. If you would please assess the significance in your mind about the safety concerns for your region, balancing, ranking these, all of these safety concerns, or assessing on a sliding bar these safety concerns. We're starting to see some responses come in. And so far, this is very consistent with what we've heard so far. All right, we have 20 responses so far. I know we normally top out around between 23 and 25, so give it just another minute. I know this is a bit more complicated question to answer and to even think about. So I am seeing so far, at least, that impaired driving, intersection safety are neck and neck as some of the greatest safety concerns in your region. And then speeding is not far behind, with rear end collisions and bicycle and pedestrian safety tied here. One of the other things that I wanted to ask at this point in time too is, are there particular locations you're seeing these safety concerns, or whether it be intersection safety, speeding locations, or even areas, this is not on the slide, but one of the other things we've heard is there are some particular freight related truck safety concerns as well. Are there any locations that really come to mind that anyone would like to share?
US 11W, Stone Drive. You could name just about any intersection on that highway.
Yeah, one thing I'll point out is, so when we come back in February, we'll present more of the existing conditions analysis. So we will be looking at crash data, identifying top crash locations. I also mentioned earlier about performance measures, so looking at specifically fatalities, serious injuries as well, to kind of report back on how the MPO is doing in terms of meeting FAST Act and MAP 21 performance measures.
There's a lot to unpack with safety, both with common concerns and particular locations. So glad to kind of see thoughts here in areas that we want to continue to investigate. So our next question is, how bad is congestion during the following time periods? And you can see we've gotten extremely technical. The bounds of reference are either not that bad or horrible. So we know that congestion is relative, and we're asking you to rate this based on how you feel about congestion. We know that, you know, compared to maybe Atlanta, you might have different experiences. We're talking about, what do you feel about what congestion is or what it should be during these times in the Kingsport MTPO area? So, and one thing that we heard, and you might think of this as you're answering for midday, is we heard that there may be some concerns around school pickup time in the afternoons. So if you agree with that, I would go ahead and enter a higher rating for midday. And everyone here is quick. It looks like we have a bunch of Menti experts. You answered really quickly. All right. We have 21 responses so far. As we're waiting for those final responses to come in, it looks like PM peak hour is the most congested time for your region, according to the folks on this call who are participating, followed by AM peak hour, midday, and that maybe it's a little bit easier to get around on the weekends. Does anyone have something they'd like to verbally comment on with regards to congestion in your region?
We'll take it over here if y'all don't want
it.
When this goes out to the public, can you just specify that this is like pre-COVID situations?
Absolutely.
Because I think we're going back right now to more and more people working from home. And if you remember what it was like here around April, the streets were like dead, completely vacant. And then, you know, this fall with kids back in school and hybrid and this, that, and the other. I mean, there's always traffic, but I've lived in Nashville. We don't have a traffic problem. We have an impaired driving, speeding teenage driver issue, but and curvy roads, but we don't have traffic like Nashville or Asheville or, you know, other big cities. But anyway, I would just recommend that if you do this survey to the public, that you specify this is all pre-COVID stuff.
FYI, Jim, and we do have the coordinated signal systems here in Kingsport. They were installed years ago and updated about a year or two ago. So that's East Mid and West Stone Drive, Fort Henry Drive, Center Street. There's several subsystems of the coordinated signal system. So, and that moves traffic pretty well.
I would say just from driving the streets, the two worst traffic locations in Kingsport are Colonial Heights after work, and then Stone Drive on the Hawkins County end after work would be just from living here. That's what I think are the two worst times and locations.
I was going to say the Allendale Stone Drive area, but we have a comment in the chat box, PM peak I-26, and we have somebody agreeing with them.
Hey, Soraya, this is Sean from Federal Highway Administration, Tennessee Division of
Hey, Sean.
Nashville. I appreciate the scale here between horrible and not that bad. You know, often when we're talking congestion, we're talking level of service and travel time reliability. I appreciate how you guys are presenting this here. I'm wondering for the board. You know, I'm in Nashville. I'm not as clued into the situation out there and you know, in the Tri-Cities. But Bill and you guys. You know, how does congestion kind of vary between the three sort of distinct urban areas there? Does that make sense? Like, do you guys see, would you have answered this differently, I guess, if you were considering Johnson City or Bristol? Does that make sense?
A little bit. Of course, Johnson City's got the college,
Mm-hmm.
and so they have a lot of traffic in that area. The retail in North Johnson City is pretty intense. I know this is strange, but I know people that would come from Kingsport to go shop in Johnson City and have backed off on that because the traffic is so bad.
Mm-hmm.
See, they actually avoid some good retail areas because of the traffic. So I mean, that's a negative to you know, a very positive thing. So.
I think each city has its own issue or problem areas. So like we were saying, Colonial Heights and Kingsport and the Allendale area, State Route 111W of Kingsport in the evenings right after work is crazy. But then you know, Johnson City, I think they have some of the largest counts in our area on Interstate 26 coming through there and like through their downtown area.
Boones Creek.
I would add that anywhere there's a high school, especially during, you know, at the end of the day, the high schools, I know the school systems, all of them do the best they can with drop off, pickup, queuing, and all of that. But if the school is near a dense population or substandard roads, they all have their varying degrees of, well, if you're not a parent dropping off your kid, you better avoid that area during that time. And so I don't live in Kingsport, I live in the county, but I've made the mistake of driving through town during dismissal, and that's not a good time to be on Highway 36. So I would say our school systems need some attention, existing and proposed or under works, as far as congestion.
And we have a comment from a county commissioner in the chat box saying traffic problems on State Route 36, Fort Henry Drive from 2:30 to 6 p.m. I assume she's talking about the Colonial Heights area that we were mentioning because she does have a business there and lives on out that road as well.
Great. This has been really, really good discussion. And I just want to make sure it's clear we really were providing these mentees so that we can all engage in the virtual environment. We know it's not very scientific and it's to help us discuss, but we promise we'll be very scientific in our analysis and also when we go out to the public with our questions to them as well. I'm going to move on. And now this is one of our last questions, and it is much more open-ended. So when you go to your phone and enter it into Menti, you'll see a blank box that you can just go ahead and type in. I'm going to wait a few more minutes on this to let folks go ahead and type their responses and let them pop up. But wanted to ask more open-ended, what does quality of life mean to you when it comes to transportation in your region? So thanks. I already got our first response. Someone wrote choice. It's very helpful. And we'll give a couple more minutes for folks to answer this one because it's open-ended. We're getting some great responses. I think it's good that this question came after Thanksgiving when we're all thinking about what we're thankful for. These are nice responses.
Yeah, Soraya, the thing that's jumping out at me too is like if you look at the keywords in here, it's matching up with the goals and everything that we're seeing as well.
Absolutely. Good. Oh, great. Maybe we want to get to 20 responses. I'll ask if anything really stuck out to one of the board members or one of the staff that we have on the phone.
Going through it this time, Sarai, it seems to me that maybe we need to say, you know, what does quality of life mean to you, you know, specific to the transportation.
Transportation.
You said it, but I think we probably ought to put it in the words here, so that we're getting stuff that's focused on what we can address in the long range plan.
Absolutely. Great. Well, we have 21 responses, and yeah, Jim, I'd agree with you and Michael both that, you know, we could be a little bit more specific in the way we're wording this when we have an official survey that goes out. But also that there seems to be a lot of consistency with what's the goals that are in the current plan. There's a lot of discussion about safety, connectivity, mode choice, and, you know, I like this one, spending time with family and not in traffic. So, you know, addressing congestion issues as well. And that really concludes our Menti section, our live polling. And if there's nothing else here, I'll go ahead and turn it back over to Jim, and I'll jump us to the next slide.
Sarai, if you didn't see the comment, it says perhaps we ask, how do we measure the quality of our transportation system, or what does quality of transportation mean to you? So those are two options, and that's from someone at TDOT.
I like that, yeah.
So how do we measure the quality of our transportation system, or what does quality of transportation mean to you?
Thanks, Leslie. All right, I think we might be ready for me to turn it back over to Jim.
Sounds good. Thanks, Soraya. Thanks, everyone. So again, we wanted to just kind of, in this virtual world, engage everybody a little bit, just give you an overview on where we are. So this is really our last slide to just kind of let you know where we're heading in the next few months. So we are working on the existing conditions analysis. So that's collecting data. We've reached out to a few agencies already. We'll be continuing to do that as we refine our needs and identify what we need. We're working with the MPO staff to look at those population and employment projections. So when we get into the travel demand model, which is the third bullet point there, we're working on that tool to update it. That's a lot of technical work on our end. We're not going to bore you with all the ins and outs of what we do there, but we'll take that 2030 in 2045 population and employment data. We'll use that as an input into the model. That's going to help us identify future level of service, or as we put it on the slide there, is it, how is it in the future? Is it not too bad, or is it horrible? And so what we have up on the screen there, I'm sure everyone's getting used to the virtual room. But again, that's something we'll be looking at for our first open house. Actually looking at having our virtual room go live in January. So we would put out there a survey mapping, as I had mentioned before. And again, the last bullet point, I already kind of hit on that, but we'll have our second meeting coming up in February, and also plan on the virtual open house as well. So with that, I'll go ahead and end there and just see if there are any questions or comments, any follow-up. Okay, if not, I'll
Good
turn
job
it back
for you,
over.
Nate.
Yeah, Bill.
Good job.
Oh, thank you. So I will go ahead and turn it back over, and look forward to working on the project and speaking with you guys again in February.
Thank you, Jim.
Okay, and James Phillips has joined us now. So James, we will be up to number 9 on the agenda.
I can handle this. Project updates. Take it away.
Jason, you're muted. If you want to go ahead and do the TDOT, then we'll do our local after you're done.
Okay. So starting in order for TDOT projects on your project update list is the Memorial Boulevard Phase 1 and Phase 2. Phase 1 is still likely 2 years left in the complete acquisition of right-of-way. It has not yet been funded for the construction phase, and the possible earliest letting will be 2022. For the Phase 2 construction, their preliminary engineering phase is where we're at. Right-of-way phase will need to be identified in the 3-year plan before they can schedule a public meeting, and at the earliest, they're looking at fall of 21 before that's done. State Route 36 from State Route 75 to I-81. It's in planning preliminary engineering starting January 21. Project will need to be identified in the 3-year plan before right-of-way in the design meeting can be scheduled. Rock Springs Road, State Route 347, preliminary engineering phase with a design meeting planned mid of 2021. Earliest letting to construction will be calendar year 23. The State Route 93 improvements, you mentioned one is under construction, and that's from north of Davis Road to north of Fire Hall Road. We have construction of the box culvert and box bridges are completed. Grading of the new alignment is ongoing, along with drainage structures and utilities in those areas, along with base stone being placed on areas that we finished grading. Be swapping traffic pretty soon in some of those areas so that we can do some more of the new alignment. 93, which Washington County and Sullivan County, the bluff from Morgan Lane to south of Baileyton Road to north of Derby Drive. Right-of-way acquisition is complete, and it is funded for fiscal year 2022 in the 3-year plan. Earliest it can be let is late next year. The Sullivan County portion of 93 from south of Horse Creek to north of Derby Drive has not yet been identified in the 3-year plan for construction. Currently in the right-of-way acquisition phase, and earliest it can be let is 2022. ITS expansion on I-81. This is a project managed by our traffic operations division and headquarters. And from our PPRM schedule, it says schedule to be let. Project is scheduled for first quarter of 2021 or 2021. I do know that they have been up here with planning on being up here with drones to identify locations for cameras and the overhead message signs. Memorial Boulevard and Fort Henry Drive intersection job. A pre-construction meeting was held with the contractor, and they have elected to wait until the poles and other items that they've ordered have come in before they start work in May of 2021. That is because we have a stipulation in there that once they start construction, they only have 90 days to complete it. Fort Robinson Bridge over Dry Creek. Project development is finalizing the plans to be submitted for right-of-way acquisition. Earliest letting construction will be 2021. The Hawkins County safety projects of Independence Avenue and Hammond Avenue were let in October for bid. That bid was awarded in the middle of November, and we have yet to schedule a pre-construction meeting on it, but it is slated to be completed in August of 2021.
Thank you. Any questions about the state projects? Michael, do you want to go over the local projects?
I'd be happy to. The West End Greenbelt continues under the NEPA phase. Actually, we had the archaeologist review up this week, and everything came back good on that. With the East End Greenbelt having the ribbon cutting last month, and it's substantially complete with some minor punch list items remaining. The Stone Drive sidewalks, phase 1 and phase 2 bracketed projects. Phase 1 is underway. They have the flat work done pretty much on all of phase 1, and continues with construction to complete by June of 21. The Main Street rebuild, we're currently still in the right-of-way phase, buying the needed construction easements and utility coordination. That's expected to bid out late spring and start construction summer of 21 and last approximately 2 years due to the staging that we need to do, the phasing to make sure that business access is maintained. Island Road rebuild remains in the NEPA phase, as well as our resurfacing grouping that we're hoping to get at least the resurfacing grouping some movement on the NEPA document this month. We still have hopes to be able to pave in 2021, but that's what's holding us back right now. I believe that's got our local projects, unless there's questions on or something I've missed.
Any questions on those? Okay. Jane, want to move to the next one?
Is that all the project updates?
Yes, we're ready for the next.
Will you throw it up there on the screen for me?
Sorry.
I was reading. That's all right. I was reading from the screen.
Let me go back to the top.
Oh, all right. State and federal partner updates.
So I will start with Blake. I think you're the only one on here from VDOT, DRPT, or OIP. So Blake, do you have anything additional, any kind of updates for Virginia VDOT?
Yeah, just remember, and I know, Leslie, you've been keeping an eye on this. Before March the 15th of 2021, we need to get our federal performance targets updated. And then also prior to February the 27th of 2021, we need to get our highway safety targets set.
Yeah, I have the, for the schedule for our next meeting in February, I've got the PM1 targets for Tennessee and Virginia, PM2 update for Virginia, and then I think Tennessee both has PM2 and 3 updates, and then the transit safety targets as well. So we'll have a full performance measure, performance-based planning and programming meeting in February.
Awesome. Sounds exciting. That's about the only part for me, I think that I had to to throw out there. I think everything else right now, as far as VTrans, it's still in its update process, and that I'm not going to say it's been put on hold, but I just haven't heard anything as of late. So I know, Leslie, you've been involved in that process. So we are still updating our state's transportation plan. So that process is ongoing. So I would be looking for something to be coming out on that sometime soon.
Okay. Okay, TDOT, Stacy, do you have anything? Stacy, if you're speaking, you're muted.
No, I didn't.
Okay.
I think
Matt,
Rhonda has the update.
Rhonda, did you have anything additional before we move on to Matt?
I did not.
Okay. Matt.
Okay. How you doing, everybody? This is Matt Meservey. I'm the new Long Range Planning Director with TDOT. I'm going on my 6th week of employment here, so I'm kind of making my rounds through the MTPO discussions and meetings and things like that. I had a couple items that I wanted to talk about. First, I wanted to get a little bit of your feedback on how yesterday's I-4081 public meeting went. I'm understanding that a lot of you attended that, so I wanted to hear what y'all had to say.
I thought it went very well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds
Yeah, it was well run. I thought Gene done a great job.
Yeah, great, Gene, great presentation.
Okay, great. So for your information, you were the first of the 4 that we're doing, so we should be done with the public hearings. I believe we're done on the 9th or the 10th of December, so we'll be done next week, and we'll be collecting all that information that we got from the public hearings and turning that around for a final document. So stay tuned for that. Any questions on that at all? Again, we can direct those to Gene or to anybody else that's working on that intimately. The other thing I'd like to talk about was the urban transportation planning grants. I know that some of you have attended some of the discussions that launched this initiative, so I thought I'd give it a little bit of time to kind of describe it a little bit more and maybe leave it open for some other questions. But if you all are familiar with the community transportation grants, those were directed more towards the rural areas in Tennessee. Preston Elliott, when he first joined TDOT, kind of brought this to light, and I've inherited it from this point on. But essentially, these are planning grants for urban areas in Tennessee. So they're cities and other municipalities that fall within an MPO boundary that are eligible for this funding opportunity. I believe, Bill and Leslie, I don't know if you've seen that PDF that was handed out when we first launched this, and I don't know if the folks on the call have seen that yet, but it does kind of lay out some of the requirements and the specifics of it. If you don't have it, we could send it again, but these are intended to help some of these municipalities with some planning level studies. Now, unfortunately, this is only for Tennessee municipalities, not Virginia, because it's covered under our state planning dollars.
There is some regulation.
I'm sorry?
City, the size of the community, is there any limitations or?
Well, because it's funded by the SPR dollars, it has to be a planning level study. We cannot have engineering involved in that because it's not eligible for the reimbursements. But it covers a lot of different elements. It could be, a larger, well, for you all, you've already done your bicycle and pedestrian plan, but for some of the smaller entities, they could look at a mobility study. They could look at, maybe some larger initiatives. They could also combine it with other municipalities. It doesn't have to come from one single entity. The funding limit is at about $200,000. This is a pilot year, so this will be a sort of a trial period to find out what kind of reception we get and what we do with it moving forward. This will be a 90-10 match. Let's see, what else did I want to bring up? Nope, I might be losing it. It might be going away. I'm coming up on my 50th birthday, so I think it's starting to happen. Anyway.
Matt, we did get the PDF. I have not shared
Okay.
it with the local jurisdictions yet.
All right.
I figured we would talk about it on this meeting, and then am I correct that you're going to do the call for projects?
Yeah, so I think that's what it
January?
was. It came to me now, so I'm going to stay young as long as I can. The idea here is we're going to release this. The application period hasn't started yet, so we're taking the rest of this year to get the word out and to answer any questions and to get people to start thinking about ideas that they want to put forth. So in January, we will give you a it's a form. So it's a mini application. That's how you will respond. And those are due back to us by January 15th. So we'll give you about a 2-week period to actually enter in the information. Well, KB and I and Stacy are working on a template to give to you all so you can hand it out to your respective jurisdictions. It'll be about a 3-page document. It's not going to ask for anything, and I wish we could, make it fun like Mentimeter, but probably won't be able to do that. But anyway,
what are some examples? I mean, you have examples.
Well, so Preston has been using, this is a Nashville example, but for any of you that have visited Nashville recently, you've noticed that there's a lot more activity on the main drag, Broadway. So one thought was potentially maybe Nashville could start looking at a curbside management study, something that would help organize the activity over there. That's one example. Larger regional mobility studies again can work. It's really all we don't really have. I think in the let me see if I can pull it up real quick. In the advertisement, we did give a couple ideas of what it is, but we're really leaving it open for interpretation for this to see what we get. One other thing I did want to say too is that we've kind of narrowed it down to 1 entry per MPO area. So that's how it would be awarded. It doesn't mean that you only have to submit 1 entry, but the way that we think it's going to work out is it would be competing against any other submissions within that MPO area. Does that make sense? Okay, so I have it here. Let's see. Eligible activities. This is what's in that handout that Leslie. Oh, there it is, right there. Much bigger font than I'm looking at right now. So they're the consolidated or the community transportation planning grants in the urban areas. That's really how it is. And because it's in the urban areas, it's a little higher dollar amount for the budget ceiling. But again, this week, the rest of this month, the rest of this year is getting the word out. So if you have any questions, or as you pass this along to your other jurisdictions that they have questions, you can reach out to myself, to Stacy, to Troy, Rhonda, Michelle, any of the OCT folks to help get your answers in time. Because as I said, once the release of the application is out, 2 weeks could go by pretty quick, and we want to make sure you have your ducks in a row. After that, we'll evaluate based on what we get, and then we'll make announcements shortly after that. We plan to also use the on-call consultants that Long Range Planning has on retainer. We have about 10 of them. So once they are awarded, we will advertise an RFP and see which consultants with your input could help you push that forward, that project. I think I've given a lot of information, so it looks like Troy. I'm looking at the chats that are going on at the bottom there. Now, again, remember, this is MPOs are not the entity that will be providing this application. It has to come straight from the municipality. This is not an MPO eligible initiative.
You're saying municipality, so it couldn't come from county government?
No, it can come from a county government, but I'm saying the MPO cannot be the sponsor of the project.
But it would have to be the part of the county located in our MPO area.
That's right. Yes,
Yeah.
that is correct.
Yeah, right.
So, I mean, based on your size, it's kind of limited, but it's any city within your boundaries, big or small. So, but again, it's not an MPO sponsored application or solicited application. And that's all I have on the long range planning side of things.
Okay, thank you. Randy Bustler was going to give an update on resurfacing for 2021. So Randy, if you want to unmute yourself.
Yeah, I was just I'd asked if y'all might be interested in hearing. We've got two pretty large projects that'll be coming in the area this year. One's I-26, resurfacing from the Welcome Center to the Washington County line. And the other one will be on John B. Dennis, State Route 93, from I-26 to 11W.
Wow.
That's our major one up there this year. So
That is big.
The Industry Drive, I guess, State Route 355, we did get it let. It carried over. It's not going to be actually paved until next spring, but it is under contract right now. So that one also will be going from there. That goes from basically from Wilcox over to Lynn Garden. So that's another one we've got in process right now. That's what we've got. If anybody's got any questions, you can always contact me.
Just for clarification, so basically I-26 from 11W to Washington County line is being resurfaced next year?
No, from the
No, the I-26 will start, the section we're paving on I-26 is from the Welcome Center to Washington County line.
Okay.
John B. Dennis will be the portion that we're going to pave John B. Dennis from I-26 to 11W.
Well, hey, Randy,
I missed that,
little section between the Welcome Center and John B. Dennis, why is that being left out? They just not in bad shape?
It's going in another segment. We're actually going to pave the one from 11W to the Welcome Center.
Okay.
For contract down the road. It's proposed for.
Okay, that's good. I got you.
Okay, so we will move on to Federal Highway. Sean, I think I got you paired.
Oh, thank you, Leslie. I appreciate it. This is Sean Santaya, Transportation Planner with the Federal Highway Administration Tennessee Division out of Nashville. Appreciate the chance to give an update here. Two items before I get into this everyday counts. As everyone in the board is probably aware, the Federal Appropriations Act does expire on December 11th. We've heard of conversations and negotiations that are happening regarding extending that, but we haven't heard anything specific. With the way that our funding comes through the FAST Act, which covers all of fiscal year 2021, we're not anticipating an interruption in our services. FHWA will continue to report to work if that Appropriations Act does expire, but there could potentially be an interruption in being able to obligate federal funding on projects. Things should still be able to proceed that have already been authorized and been obligated, but there could potentially be an interruption in being able to do new projects. But optimistically, not anticipating that. For what Leslie is sharing here, I'm going to move to our Everyday Counts initiative. This is an initiative that FHWA uses to highlight innovative practices happening in transportation across the country, proven beneficial practices that have had projects that have shown project benefits and improved outcomes, streamlining project delivery, cost effectiveness, and all sorts of other benefits. And so we do we highlight these innovations in rounds through this Everyday Counts initiative. So we are now entering round 6 of the initiative. EDC 6 is going to kick off in January. And we're highlighting seven innovations. And Leslie, if you can just kind of slowly scroll through here, and I'll drop the link into the chat pod for
I'll put the link
everyone.
in there. The link in the
Okay.
chat box. Yeah.
Perfect. I appreciate it. We've got, crowdsourcing for advancing operations. How can crowdsourcing data used to help out with our TISMO, our operations of the roadways? We've got digital materials ticketing systems, innovations in traffic incident management, innovations in workforce development, a couple of materials related innovations, targeted overlay pavement solutions, and ultra high performance concrete. And then the last one is a little bit planning related, virtual public involvement, which is, of course, being demonstrated with this meeting today. But again, these are 7 innovative practices that FHWA has identified and is choosing to just sort of help advance throughout the country. And with that comes targeted technical assistance, training. If there's even a potential for increased federal share on projects that make use of these innovations, so there's a little bit of a carrot there. And this is going to formally kick off next week with an EDC 6 summit. Leslie, if you'll scroll down just a little bit on the right-hand side, there's a link that says EDC 6 summit. And if you can click that. So next week we're going to be putting on a program. It's going to be a virtual summit where we're going to be basically showcasing how these innovative practices have been demonstrated throughout the country, and the kinds of things that FHWA can do to help out, not just state DOTs, but also all of our local partners and our MPO partners, if there are any that they're interested in. So I'll drop the link to the summit, at least in the chat pod here. And anyone that's interested is welcome to register at that link and participate in that summit. And if there's anything in here that catches your eye, reach out to our office and let us know you're interested, and we'll see what we can do to help you guys out. And remember, it's not just planning. There's material stuff here. There's operations things, the full gamut. So just wanted to make that pitch. I appreciate the chance. And if there's any questions for Federal Highway Administration, I'm happy to address. All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Sean.
Okay. I believe that's all the state and federal partner updates. So we can move on, James.
Okay. I got my paper. I'm good now. Next is public comments. So members of the public may address the executive board with issues related to this region's transportation system. We have a 5-minute time limit per individual and topic. And I'll also say, since we're doing it in this format, you can also type your question down in the chat box as well. So I think we'll open it up for comments here if anybody's got any questions from the public, and we'll go from there.
Going once.
Yeah, we'll wait just a second and see if anybody types anything. But if nobody's got anything, we'll get ready to adjourn the meeting. And I apologize again for being late. And it's I was saying everybody's trying to cram all these meetings in before Christmas. So I'm just going from one Zoom meeting to another, and I'm sure everyone is very familiar with that right now. So,
Candace have anything?
No, I asked in the chat box and she didn't respond. So
Okay.
we did get a CATS update, but it probably is an MPO, but we got a CATS update at the BMA meeting last week, and they're currently going through a process of doing a study to figure out what's next for CATS in terms of ridership and all that. So it was really interesting study. This was our second presentation. I think we got a third one coming up. So
I did talk to her this morning, and she said, I guess that there may be some, the consultant may be recommending some pretty significant changes for CATS. So if they do that, then she was asking me about public input and involvement and, how we've been doing things. And so I was telling her how we've been doing these meetings, and also how we did the public meetings for the TAP grant application, how we did one in person and then one online, and sent her the link to view that one that we had done, but also offered, if they want us to set up a Zoom for them, like a webinar like this, we can run it from here and, put them or the consultant or whoever as panelists so they can do their speaking and presentation, and we can host it and run it behind the scenes. So I told her to let me know if she wants to do that. Oh, she just said CATS update working on transit study. So she just put that in the chat box. So that's what we were talking about this morning, is the public input process if it gets to that point. Perfect. And working on A&E for the garage.
all right, well, with that, if nobody else from the public has any comments or questions, I will take a motion to adjourn today's meeting.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
I can always
I'll
count.
second.
Second, and all right, well, with that, do we need to do a roll call to adjourn, or?
I'll do it just in case. So
all
Chairman
right.
Phillips.
Aye.
Vice Chair Adkins.
Aye.
Blake Ayler.
Aye.
Chase Milner.
Aye.
Rhonda Sawyer. Mayor Stillwell.
Aye.
And Amber Torbett. Amber, if you're speaking, you're muted, but
Amber left the building.
Yeah, we have a quorum, so I appreciate y'all.
All right, everybody have a Merry Christmas, and we'll see you next year.
Thanks, guys.
Take care.
Thank you.
Take care.